Have you ever wondered what happened to Esau, Jacob's twin brother? We often hear about Jacob's journey, his 12 sons, and the nation of Israel that followed. But Esau's story is just as fascinating, and it all starts with a series of choices that would echo through generations. His marriages, in particular, set in motion a chain of events that shaped the history of the ancient world. So, let's take a deep dive into the untold legacy of Esau, from his controversial brides to the powerful descendants who emerged from his lineage. It all begins with Esau's decision to marry women from the land of Canaan. The book of Genesis tells us he took 2 Hittite wives, Judith and Basemath. Now, this was a huge deal. For his parents, Isaac and Rebekah, it was a source of deep grief, because the Abrahamic covenant, the promise passed down from Abraham to Isaac, was meant to be kept within the family line. Marrying Canaanite women was seen as a step away from that sacred heritage, a blending of cultures and beliefs that worried them. Esau's choice wasn't just a personal matter. It was a cultural and spiritual statement. It showed an impulsive side to his character, a tendency to follow his immediate desires, rather than considering the long-term spiritual implications for his family. This decision created a rift, a tension that marked the beginning of a long and complicated family history. The friction in the family was palpable. Rebekah was so distressed by Esau's Hittite wives that she famously told Isaac she was tired of her life because of them. Her lament wasn't just about a difficult daughter-in-law, it was about the potential dilution of their unique covenantal identity. This family discord highlights a central theme in Esau's story: the constant pull between personal choice and family tradition, between fitting in with the surrounding cultures and staying true to his own spiritual roots. Seeing his parents' grief, Esau tried to make amends. He decided to marry again, but this time, he chose Mahalath, the daughter of his uncle Ishmael. This was a clear attempt to reconnect with his Abrahamic lineage, to choose a wife from within the extended family. It was a strategic move, an effort to realign himself with his family's expectations and perhaps heal the rift his first marriages had caused. But the die had already been cast. The path he had started down with his Canaanite wives would define his legacy and the destiny of his descendants. From these marriages, a new nation was born: the Edomites. Esau and his growing family eventually moved away from Canaan and settled in the mountainous region of Seir. This geographical shift was significant. It marked a physical and symbolic separation from Jacob and his descendants, the future Israelites. Living in the rugged, fortified landscape of Seir, the Edomites developed their own unique culture, society, and political structure. They became known for their skill in metalworking thanks to the rich copper resources in the area, and their strategic location along major trade routes brought them economic prosperity. While Jacob's family was still nomadic, the Edomites were already establishing a kingdom, with chieftains and kings ruling long before Israel had its first monarch. This move to Seir wasn't just a change of address. It was the beginning of a distinct national identity, separate from the one being forged by his brother, Jacob. The descendants of Esau are meticulously listed in the Bible, particularly in Genesis chapter 36. His sons Eliphaz, Reuel, Jush, Jalam, and Korah became the fathers of the clans of Edom. These chieftains, dukes, were the foundation of Edomite society. They weren't just names on a family tree. They were leaders who shaped the region's governance, military decisions, and cultural practices. Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn, had several sons who became prominent chiefs themselves, including Timon and Omar. But there's one descendant of Eliphaz who stands out for a different reason: Amalek. Amalek was the son of Eliphaz and his concubine Timnah. The Amalekites would go on to become one of the most persistent and bitter enemies of the Israelites. This lineage, born from Esau's line, adds another layer of complexity to the relationship between the two brother nations. It shows how family ties, even distant ones, could become the source of deep-seated conflict that would last for centuries. The rivalry that began in the womb with Jacob and Esau continued through their descendants. The Edomites and the Israelites were kin, yet their history is filled with tension and hostility. One of the most famous examples comes during the Exodus, when the Israelites, wandering in the desert, asked the Edomites for permission to pass through their land. The Edomites flatly refused, forcing the Israelites to take a long and difficult detour. This act was seen as a profound betrayal, a brother nation turning its back on family in a time of need. This hostility continued throughout the periods of the judges and the kings of Israel. King Saul fought them, and King David eventually subdued them, but the conflict always simmered beneath the surface. The prophets, like Obadiah and Ezekiel, later spoke of divine judgment against Edom, not just for their military opposition, but specifically for their pride and their violent betrayal of their brother, Jacob. Especially during the destruction of Jerusalem, they stood by and rejoiced in Israel's downfall, an act that the Bible presents as unforgivable. This long-standing conflict between the Edomites and Israelites wasn't just about territory or resources. It was rooted in their very origins. Esau's impulsive decision to sell his birthright for a bowl of stew and his choice to marry outside the covenant line, and Jacob's cunning in securing the blessing. All of these initial family dramas set the stage for centuries of national strife. Esau's path was one of cultural assimilation and immediate gratification, while Jacob's, though flawed, was one that ultimately aligned with the covenantal promises given to Abraham and Isaac. Their divergent paths illustrate a core message in the biblical narrative. Choices have consequences that ripple through generations. The story of Esau's marriages is a powerful reminder of how personal decisions can shape not only a family's future but the destiny of entire nations. Interestingly, the story of Esau's descendants doesn't just end in the Old Testament. By the time of the New Testament, the Edomites were known as Edomites. They had been forcibly assimilated into Judean society generations earlier, and from this lineage came one of the most infamous figures in the Bible, Herod the Great. That's right, the king who ruled Judea at the time of Jesus' birth was an Edomian, a descendant of Esau. Herod was known for his massive building projects like the expansion of the Second Temple, but also for his paranoia and brutality, epitomized by the massacre of the infants in Bethlehem. His reign created a climate of fear and political instability that profoundly shaped the world into which Jesus ministered. It's a fascinating twist of history that a descendant of Esau would be ruling over the descendants of Jacob, bringing the ancient sibling rivalry full circle in a completely unexpected way. So, the next time you read the story of Jacob and Esau, remember that Esau's journey didn't end with him losing his birthright. His choices, especially his marriages, set in motion a legacy that was powerful, complex, and deeply intertwined with the story of Israel. From the grief he caused his parents to the rise of the Edomite nation, the conflicts with Israel, and the eventual reign of Herod the Great, the lineage of Isaac's bold son left an indelible mark on biblical history. It's a story of family, faith, conflict, and consequence, a powerful narrative that reminds us how the choices of one person can echo for an eternity. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Take care and God bless.